Hey, welcome back guys. In this video I'm going to be talking about one of the main pillars, one of the big pillars of Islam, and that is Hajj. For those of you that don't know, Muslims have an obligation, so it's not just voluntary. This is something that all Muslims, no matter whether they're male or female, whether they're poor or rich, they have an obligation to travel halfway across the world if need be, to Mecca, to visit the Kaaba, to walk between Safa and Marwa, the two mountains where Hagar walked between in search of water. They have a duty to do this, to do tawaf around the big cube, and to get shaved. I think they shave their hair and they dress like a monk as they do it. Let's take a look at a clip of a couple of Muslims who went on Hajj, and let's see some of the highlights from their experience.
When these ladies move up, you can kiss it. Might as well. Don't worry, after these women are gone. Okay guys, so we've just completed our tawaf around the Kaaba, which is going around the Kaaba 7 times. It's been very, very busy. It's super warm as well. We're now going to head over to Sa'i, which is Safa and Marwa, which we've got to go up and down 7 times. If you want to know more about that, you can Google it and stuff. But yeah, right now I'm actually out of all energy. I need to go carry on with this, and then I'll join up with you in a second. So we're now going to do the Sa'i, which is Safa and Marwa, which is a mountain to a mountain. There's a story behind this as well, which I'll tell you some other time. There's no turning back now. Safa, have you ever been bowled before?
Years ago when I was like 8 years old.
Man called you Sonia, look at your face. Is it too far to turn back now?
It's way too far to turn back now. So as you can see, Alim's head is being shaved, and he is now going to be looking like a bulletproof monk. Alim, give us a little thumbs up if you're feeling alright. Wicked. Right, handsome, how you feeling?
You might be thinking, well, Chris, this is fine. You know, lots of religions do this. We have all the different holy sites. We go there to venerate certain events or certain people as part of a religion. That's completely normal, right? Except with Islam, it's an obligation, and it's an obligation that you have to do at some point in your life as part of the main pillars of the religion. So we can do some maths. So the Saudi Arabian government has its Ministry of Hajj that specifically sets the quota for each year. So for every year, on the final month of the Islamic calendar, the Saudi Arabian government issues quotas for different Muslim nations around the world, with the number of quotas that they issue depending on how large the Muslim population is in that nation. Some nations will have more Muslims than others, so they'll have more quotas, more people can come. And if you're unfortunate enough that you're a Muslim and you aren't considered as part of the quota by the Saudi Arabian government to come to Mecca for Hajj, you can't go. There is no way around that. You simply cannot go. The Saudi Arabian government determines exactly which Muslims can go to Hajj and which Muslims can't go to Hajj. That's it. What happens if you have lots of money and you're a rich Saudi and you want to go to Hajj? Tough. If the Saudi Arabian government decides you can't go, you can't go. What happens if you're an elderly man with mental health issues? Perhaps you have difficulty walking. Can you go then? No. Saudi Arabian government says no. Sorry. If the Saudi Arabian government has control over who can come in and who can't come in for Hajj every year, what does that mean for those who can't get in? Well, They just have to pick a different year and hope they get lucky on that year. And that sounds kind of fine if you just think of it from that level, but what happens if you look at it from another layer above? What happens if you ask, what are the odds that all Muslims in the world are going to one day be able to get to the Hajj and finally do one of those 5 pillars of Islam? Well, if we take the average number of Muslims in the world and we do some maths, if we say there's 1.8 billion Muslims in the world, and we say that the average amount of people that the Saudi Arabian government allows to go to the Hajj every year is around 3 million, then we end up with a figure that says if we want all of those 1.8 million Muslims to do Hajj, that would take roughly 600 years to get them all in Mecca, walking around the Kaaba. I don't know about you, but I don't think most Muslims plan to live for 600 years, so I don't think that plan is going to work. What makes it even worse is that the Saudi Arabian government sets limitations on exactly who can do Hajj. For example, you need to be a mature adult, you also can't be over the age of 65, so that means you have an even smaller time window to be able to make the Hajj. Not only do you need to make sure you're in the right age bracket to make sure you can go on Hajj, you also need to follow the new Saudi Arabian government guidelines that have been put in place following the pandemic. This includes things like making sure you have both your vaccinations. If we look at the Saudi Arabian government website, we can clearly see that they make it clear that it is mandatory that you have both your COVID vaccinations in order to get to Mecca. If you don't have those vaccinations, you can't go on Hajj. So if you think about it, we're actually at a point now where one of the main pillars of Islam is actually dependent on the COVID vaccine. You need the COVID vaccine to be able to fulfill your duties as a Muslim to go on Hajj, which is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. Now, I happen to know a few Muslims who are COVID skeptics. They don't believe in the vaccine and so on. So for them, I imagine it's even more difficult because now their own religion, in order to follow their deen, follow their religion, they actually have to break their own beliefs and get vaccinated. It's easy sometimes to forget that not only is there significant financial pressure on doing Hajj, significant amount of your own time that you have to put into it to make sure everything comes together and is done. But there's also pressure just on being able to complete Hajj without any major incident going off. Here is a list of all of the different incidents that have occurred during Hajj over the last so many decades. One common issue that people often face when doing Hajj is the overcrowding. Trying to get around 3 million people into a very consecrated area often leads to significant issues and often leads to suffocation in crowds. One of the most notable and biggest disasters that occurred at Mecca was in 2015 when reportedly around 2,400 people died as a result of overcrowding. And that's something that part of the very basics of your religion shouldn't include putting yourself in a position where you could be in a life or death situation because you've had to travel potentially halfway across the world to a place that you probably don't know much about, that is vastly overcrowded, with very poor hygiene often, and very little accessibility for people who are wheelchair bound, etc, etc. Not only that, but it can also be a matter of salvation. Now, it's true that there might be some exceptions if there are some people who simply cannot go on Hajj, it's just not practical for them to do so. But what about people who can go on Hajj, but they just don't want to spend all that money, all that time, put their own lives at risk, get the COVID vaccination? What about those people? Are you telling me that there are some Muslims that won't get into Jannah just because they didn't have the money, or that they didn't want to spend that kind of time and resources it would cost away from their families to go to a very specific place, get their hair shaved, walk between 2 mountains, and supposedly do something that their prophet did? It just seems at the very foundational level completely unfair that this aspect of the religion is built into salvation. It would terrify me as a Muslim if I had to make this once in a lifetime journey a great peril to not only just myself but my friends and family, simply because a prophet did it and therefore I should also do it. That doesn't seem to add up to me. That doesn't seem to make sense. When I think about how this is similar to my own faith in Christianity, we don't have the same exact things. There isn't this understanding that salvation is somehow dependent on a government scheme, as it is with Hajj, since it's operated, owned, and controlled solely by the Saudi Arabian government. We still have holy sites, and we still have things that we can do as pilgrims, to go on pilgrimage, to see particular relics or particular holy sites. That's something that we have in common, but For us, our salvation is found solely in the person of Jesus Christ and what he did for us, and not what the Saudi Arabian government does for us. The idea of government-sanctioned religious holy sites, I guess, is just a very strange notion to me. It doesn't really connect. It doesn't quite make sense. If we want to go to Jerusalem and see the holy sites there, we have the freedom to do so and to venerate accordingly. Perhaps not with so many kisses, maybe. But it's still something that as Christians we have the freedom to do. Our salvation, properly understood, is found in the exercise through faith in our religion. It's not found through government websites. And for me, that's a huge contrast. And I think if you're watching this as a Muslim, I think you should really think about what it feels to have one of the very foundational pillars of your faith to be in effect controlled by Saudi Arabia. A state that was largely founded by the efforts of the British government should not be in control over how you exercise your religion. That just doesn't make any sense. Come to Jesus Christ, where you can have true freedom and you don't have to worry about doing perilous, dangerous, risky world travels that you might not necessarily make it back from. God bless you all. Have a great day.